I'd like to welcome religious exorcists Lesley Bonga and Stephanie Brady, who share what it's like to work as exorcists, also training exorcists, and some of their most memorable experiences, including spirit and elemental hauntings, demonic possession and demonic car attack, and so much more. So let's get into our fascinating interview with Lesley and Stephanie. So I would love to welcome Stephanie Brady and Lesley Bonga here with us today from the St. Joan of Arc Independent Anglican Church. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Stephanie contacted me through Facebook and we friended each other, and Stephanie works as an ordained priest and an exorcist, and I went, oh, my little spidey senses were instantly curious and interested to hear about your work and hear about your life working as an exorcist and how this ties into the St. Joan of Arc Independent Anglican Church. So would you ladies like to share with us what you do? And I'm just really keen to hear.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Okay, sure. St. John's was founded by myself and Stephanie. We really wanted to create kind of a safe, well, initially female exorcist, and then also for my who are being trained in religious demonology, to also have sort of taken off from there and become an independent church. It's still really in the very beginning stages, but yeah, that's where we started.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful because I work a little bit along those lines of working with clearing people. So Stephanie and I were talking earlier about the similarities and the differences in how we work. So would
Right.
Stephanie like to share with everybody how you approach being an exorcist and also working as an ordained priest, how you would approach it if you had to do a clearing with someone, had to do an exorcism?
First, I always start off with an investigation because you want to debunk. That's what
Yes.
I go in to make sure there's actually something there and it's not pipes going or it's in the client's head or you just got to really check that out. Then, what I've learned is, and I really do believe like I said, I work with the Roman Catholic priest and um, you clear the house first because you want to clear everything off the walls and the dwelling and everything, and then you start to work on the person. Um, my last case, it was interesting because we did prove that there was something there first, and she had made a kind of like a vow to the demons, get away from my family and put it all on me. She had to renounce that because basically it's just saying, go ahead and take my soul. And by the third time that she renounced it, instantly and she wasn't possessed before, but instantaneous possession right then and there. And then it gets a little bit difficult to get the demon out. I don't, it could take one time, it could take up to 20 is what I found. Generally there's what we did last time was exorcist holy water with a little bit of exorcism salt and had them drink it. It took her 3 times, but eventually they started throwing it, and it's not normal throw up, it's like black or green, and they're essentially purging out the demonic entity is what's happening. Um, but like I say, people have free will. Unfortunately, half the clients don't follow through with what they're supposed to do. And this was one of those cases. It gets
If
frustrating,
I
but you can't do anything. Just pray for them. What's that?
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to add to what you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, Leslie's frozen.
Oh, did we lose her?
She's there, but she's not there. The paranormals are
Okay.
really playing with Leslie's internet today. They are
They
making life
really
very,
are.
very hard.
They really are. They don't want to get any word out about the church. They don't want to hear about it.
They do it
Am I
all
I
the
bet
back?
that's
time.
it.
Oh, you're back again.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh,
Oh, there you
fantastic.
go. Good.
I'm having so many technical difficulties today. I apologize. I just
No.
wanted to add to what you were saying, Stephanie, about that first initial process and kind of um, I also include like a mental health assessment or a biopsychosocial
Right.
assessment.
Right.
And then I'll encourage a medical assessment or neurological assessment. Obviously, I don't conduct those. I'm not qualified to do that. But I am a
Yes.
mental health counselor. So sometimes I'll do the biopsychosocial with them. But I like that initial interview process just to gather information about, exactly what's happening. Because like Stephanie said, sometimes there's legitimately, um, some affliction happening. Sometimes it's
Right.
a mental health issue.
Yes.
Sometimes, unfortunately, it can even be attention seeking. Or sometimes
Yeah.
it's just, they've watched a lot of paranormal shows and they really freak themselves out. And so they're seeing things, reading into things that may not necessarily be anything, or a combination of those things. We
Right.
talk a lot about how mental illness and demonic affliction are not mutually exclusive. You can have both and they
Oh,
can
yeah.
play off each other. So, yeah, taking those, I like to start there in the very beginning and just kind of get a plan formulated based on what that initial information gives us and then
Right.
decide
It's
what are the
smart. I
reasons.
usually do a Zoom call too. So you
Yes.
can look at their
Yeah,
faces and see which way they're
yeah,
looking or what, I
yeah.
don't know.
Yep. I also look at what I call paranormal addiction. These are
Oh,
people that
yeah.
love the paranormal. I mean, I'm a paranormal addict. I talk about it all the time, but it's part of my work, and I channel my paranormal interest into the lifestyle. And the addiction is part of how I work, is that I'm very tuned in, I can connect with them, and I've got that strong understanding. But there's a lot of people that, like you said, they watch the movies, they're doing paranormal investigations, they're watching paranormal investigations on social media. It
Right.
becomes something that, like you said, it can be a mental health issue. It can tip them into a mental health issue, like a
Mhm.
paranormal psychosis type thing. So I find in people's emails how they write their emails can be a dead giveaway. I'm glad you're nodding because I'm not
Hmm.
trained as a mental health professional, and I, like yourself, I always send people to their medical doctor, their mental health professional. Energy clearing comes third on the list, always.
Right.
But emails for me are a dead giveaway. The way they write them, the language, the detail. And I will be there and then, no, I think you need to see your doctor first. And I will just refuse to
Yeah.
do the work until they do. Like you said, it can also be loneliness as well. Do you find you get a lot of clients that it's an attention seeking behavior for them? You're both nodding, so I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're bored. Sometimes, yeah, they're lonely. They just want to. I think sometimes people feel like it makes them feel special. They've got one-on-one attention from someone,
Right.
really listening to them. They feel seen, they feel heard, and who doesn't want to feel that way?
Yeah.
So sometimes if people are in a low enough space, I think they'll reach for that wherever they can find it.
I've actually had clients where I've gotten, rid of them like twice, but each time they keep bringing it back
Yeah.
because they want that attention. They don't care whether it's negative or positive. They just want it.
And I find some clients, it's who am I without the entity present? If it's been there for a very, very long time, and Stephanie and I were talking earlier about how if someone has paranormal beings or dark entities in them or around them for very long periods, 5, 10, 15 years, becomes part of their thinking and who they are. And when someone comes
Identity.
along and goes, that they're ready to let it go, or they think they're ready to let it go, do they really want it gone? It's like people who have mental health conditions, but it becomes who they identify as the condition, which is what I'm trying to say. And it really is a
Right.
struggle for a lot of people to let them go. And some people, it gives them the power, like they get some sort of advantages out of it, what they think they do. It really is quite a
Yeah.
complex, it's a complex situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
So when you're working with clients, Stephanie, what's your life like, or what would the process be to work with someone when you're conducting an exorcism?
First of all, and I don't know, I always had them, they've got to sign sheets for me, release of authorization of video and audio. I even had them sign a liability thing. And not that you're protected 100%, but people tend to be a little sue happy nowadays. Yeah. So something I insist upon is that they do sign those. Um, but first it's key. You got to look in their eyes. You got to see if they're looking directly at you I always have a powwow before and sit
Yes.
down and have a
Yes.
powwow and have them repeat everything that's going on. If they're looking away from you or looking to them, I mean, that's a clear sign that something's going on, you know. Um, the state of the house always clues me in a little bit. If it's messy, chaotic, I've been in places that are full of roaches and dog feces and things like that. That kind of puts up a red flag for me a little bit, definitely a lot. Um, so I don't know. Then, like I said, I just proceed to do a cleanse of the entire house and see how they're doing. Because not everybody that has demonic influences in the house has a possession or has an attachment. So to
It's
me, I
actually
find that
very
always
rare.
yeah, it is. It really is. So I find the cleanse is enough most times.
I wrote down a couple of questions. Well, a couple of observations is that sometimes when you look in people's eyes, you can't actually
Right.
see them. There's a barrier or some sort of energetic blockade behind their
Yeah.
eyes. When you look at most people, it's not that you see into their soul, but you see them.
Yeah,
When you look at
exactly.
people,
Sometimes their eyes turn black.
yes, yes, yes.
That's a key sign.
I feel a barrier when I look at them. It's like I feel or I see nothing. Like you look at their
Right.
eyes and you don't get a sense of their personality or their character. It's like they're empty, but they're obviously not because they're there, but they're being overshadowed by something.
Right.
Something else I
Mm.
wrote down. When you go through your exorcism process or clearing the house, do you find that the entities come to you? Do you find that they transfer?
No, never. I've always been, I do a lot of protection. I feel like almost I'm divinely protected in one way or another. I've never brought anything home. The only time I was attacked was that once. And I can honestly say I've really never been touched by anything.
I had a case in 2016 that was particularly intense.
Yeah,
And at that time, I was a paranormal investigator. I was not a priest. I had not had formal training in religious demonology. So, I walked in just like I've been investigating for many, many years. I know what I'm doing. I can handle this situation. I recognize now I had a little spiritual pride walking into that situation, and it really bit me because I was not ready. I met the family. The mother was actually transiently possessed. There were children in the home. There was a lot going on, and so when we stepped in to do the investigation, we were there initially for a few hours, did the interview, gathered information, just kind of got a baseline for what was going on in the house. And then we came back for the full investigation, but literally all hell broke loose. People were getting scratched. The client was levitated with one of the investigators that was there as well. It was really pretty chaotic. It was like what you see in horror movies.
Yep.
And while I knew all of that was possible, I had never witnessed that firsthand for myself. So it was pretty intense. And we really wanted to be able to help the client, but they weren't really receptive to being handed off to clergy. Um, so we ended up going home. We stayed almost the full night, went home the next morning. And for the next, I'd say almost 3 months, it was most intense in the first 3 weeks, but it faded completely by 3 months. Um,
Yeah.
Oppression that I was experiencing as a result of that case.
Yep.
And I learned a lot from that experience. And it's never happened since, but I think I needed to have that experience. I think God wanted me to have that experience so I could, check some of that pride where it was like, I can handle all this.
Yeah.
And I learned what he was saying to me was not without me. You can't. Not without me can you step into those situations. And so I had to kind of reassess and went a different direction. And that's what essentially led me to the priesthood.
Yeah,
That's
that's
wild.
fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Because I find a lot of the time these dark and demonic entities, we as energy workers, that's what I call myself because I'm not ordained as anything. I do my own thing at the moment. This is just what I've trained myself to do, is that we are well known on the what I call the dark gossip grapevine. They know the
Absolutely.
energy workers that do the exorcisms, that do, I call them personal clearings because I'm not trained to call
Yeah.
them anything else. They know who we are and they observe what we do. And I, like yourself, Lesley, I got the little bit of pride and ego initially brought me down with a very big energetic slap to start with because I thought I knew it all and I didn't know anything and I had to learn a lot along the way. I've been at it for like 30 years now from when I very first started. But now I just treat them with respect. And they know that I've been professionally employed. I was saying this to Stephanie earlier that I say to them, I am professionally employed to enter the property or to do a personal clearing. So therefore, once I do that clearing, they must leave. It's not like I'm stepping in ego and doing it because I think it needs doing. I've been
Mhm.
employed to do this by the client. The entities must leave. And they do. They generally honour that situation. Most of them do. There's a few that don't. Have you ever come across any tricky situations, Stephanie or Lesley, where the entities won't leave?
I had a dwarf once in elemental, and
Oh,
now he was, and I never did get him to go. The people bought the house at an incredibly low price. Um, and I think the people before I'd only been there for 2 months, they had been without sleep for 7 years. I mean, every time they went to bed, this entity would jump on the bed and pull on them and pull their hair and just do everything to make sure they couldn't sleep. And I had been there when I forgot they do attack my car. I've had 4 double blowouts 1 year.
wow.
And yeah, I know on the way to cases. This this one now I went out there at 2 a.m. and he had actually drained my battery completely. So I was waiting for AAA sitting in the car, and all of a sudden the headlights start flashing on and off. The radio starts blaring, the horn starts going on. Yeah, yeah. He was letting me know I don't want you coming back. And I'm frantically trying to turn that off, but there was no way, there was no juice to anything. So yeah, I tried everything. I think he was just quite honestly one pissed off little dwarf. They had, in my theory was they had built the house on his house,
Uh-uh.
and
Okay.
he was mad, and I did everything but have an Indian clearing just because I couldn't find a tribe to clear the land.
Yep.
And nothing to this day, nothing has worked with him.
I wonder if he is what I call a land guardian. He's been assigned to that location for some reason. I've got a couple here that are still in their place, but they behave themselves. Whether they're
Yeah.
assigned here in this reality, because I look at it, all the realities all overlap all at the same time. So maybe his
Right.
house is in his reality, but also in this reality where this other house is.
True. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we've got a troll here at that location that I'm going to visit today. That's in a very old town, and he's there as a land guardian. And he told me that he's there for a reason, and he doesn't like people. You don't go near him. He scratched people in the past and so forth who've gone to call him out. Whereas I treated him with respect, and we had some interesting conversations. I don't hear from him now because they're very secretive, but he's there for a reason. He couldn't quite
Right.
convey to me why he's there, but I just went, that's fine. If you're there for a reason, I'm not going to do anything with you. Thank you for the conversation. And
Right.
just let that go. Because, yeah, sometimes you just wonder whether everything is all overlapping and these beings are doing their thing in their reality, but it's also in
Right.
our reality at the same time. Does that make sense?
Makes
Yeah,
total
the veil
sense.
is thin. The veil is thin.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
there
he
is.
actually came to me in a dream. I mean, a very
Ah,
vivid dream where I could actually smell him. And he smelled like the bog, but anyway,
what does he
but
smell
it
like?
is a bog.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
I've had a
it's
client
definitely.
describe trolls as smelling like burnt toast.
Oh, geez, I never heard that one. That's interesting.
That one
I've
was
only
living.
had one case that was elemental,
Yep.
and that was many years ago. The feeling is very distinct, though, something I've noticed, and I think a lot of us in this sort of line of work have, some empathic gifts or, um, the spirit of discernment. So I think those things get stronger with time, and you start to kind of be able to differentiate what each of those entities feels like when you're near it. And I hadn't experienced it before, so it was really foreign to me. And I'm like, well, this is not a demon. This is not a human spirit. I don't know what this is, but this is something
What is
very ancient.
Yeah.
It's very, doesn't feel evil, but it certainly feels like it could do some damage if it wanted to. And really just, I got the impression it wanted to be left alone. So this man's house was in the middle of nowhere, and he had a cemetery on three sides of his home. And the other side of the home was forest. And so when we first pulled up, I thought, okay, this is definitely the cemeteries. Turns out it wasn't actually. It was the forest behind. And he'd found a deer skull completely intact, with
Wow.
horns, and he thought it was beautiful. He found it in the forest. He cleaned it up and he hung it on his wall, and it kept crashing down. And he said,
Oh,
ever since I put this on my wall, I'm seeing shadows in my house. I'm hearing noises, growls, and it just keeps flying off my wall. He said, I have anchored this thing with screws, he's like, it just keeps crashing down. And sure enough, when we came to do the investigation, we were in the back of the house and we hear a crash, and there it is on the floor. And he's like, see, I can't keep it up there. And I'm like, put it back. Just
back.
it doesn't belong to you. It never belonged to you. It belongs in the forest. And I think the elemental spirits that are present in that space are telling you that is not yours. For whatever reason, he's just like, why do they care? It's not, I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you that it doesn't belong to you. So you need to return it. And he did, and all the activity stopped.
Well
So
done.
yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It was an interesting experience. But I'm glad that I was able to have that experience of sort of being able to feel it out. And so now I can identify when I go into a space, if it's an elemental haunting, it's got that very distinct vibration that
It
is
does.
unlike
I've been
anything
kicked in the
else.
kneecaps by gnomes a few times.
Oh my
Really?
gosh.
They're quite
Oh
funny because I
no.
sit when I do my work. I do all remote work. I do everything is done remotely with floor plans and a photo of the front of the house and the address. And I've been doing the work, and gnomes are like the bowerbird of the elemental realm, I call them. They love things and trinkets and treasures. And when you clean out their treasure rooms, they get angry and they cause all sorts of mischief, but they don't possess people. They don't scratch people.
Yeah.
They just create naughtiness in homes. So this one didn't like me because I was doing an energy clearing, and we had a conversation and everything was good. But I got these very sharp pains under my right kneecap, which I don't have. It's not a medical illness. I wasn't doing any exercise. I was simply sitting. And to get these sharp pains when I'm tuned into a house, is there any elementals here? And I got, yes, how many? And I went through all the process. They were just annoyed that I was there. So they're like, how can we show her we're annoyed? We'll kick her in the kneecaps while she's sitting down.
Just mischievous.
They are mischievous. Yeah, they're not harmful. Even the trolls aren't harmful. They just smell like a bog. That's a really good way to describe it. This other client described it as burnt toast, but that might be a different type of elemental. What you were saying before about having issues with your car, Stephanie, is I get brain fog sometimes, which is not an issue for me. If I get in a car to go to a client's house, sometimes I used
Right.
to, and I'd get in the car, couldn't remember anything, couldn't remember the address, didn't know where I was going, the name of the client. I'm like, what's... So now I take my iPad and I'll have the GPS thingy there. I'll have it also written down because
Right.
sometimes they'll switch off my iPad so I can't turn it on. So you've had things
They
like that
are.
happen?
Things like possessed people. A possessed woman once leaned on the car while we were talking for about 15 minutes. And I took off and the radio just kept spinning around and around and around. So I did a clearing of the car when I got home. It's just my car gets attacked more than me, for some odd reason.
Do they know your weaknesses, as in what will trigger you in the middle of an exorcism? Do they try
Yeah.
and trigger you sometimes so that you'll stop or you'll get panicky or cry or leave?
I generally don't. That's one of the gifts that God has given me is the gift. I don't have any fear, which is good so
Yes.
far. So
Yes.
far. But I do, like you say, get brain fog. I'll forget what prayer I'm supposed to be saying or
Yes.
forget the middle. How do I finish this prayer? Dang it. Or
Yeah.
I'll be doing the smudging and all of a sudden that charcoal thing will fly out onto someone's carpet. Yeah, and things like that they'll
Yeah.
do.
To
They can make
stop
me
you.
intimidated of my what I'm doing, whether I'm doing it right or strong enough. That's what they do. They they make me doubt myself. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. And isn't it funny that demonic entities are afraid of us mere humans? I have a little chuckle about that all the time. It's all right. Lesley is back again. I'm going to admit, there
Awesome.
we go.
She in?
Oh, they are being cheeky buggers today, aren't they?
They
Yeah, they
really
are.
are. They really are.
And you know what it is? It's the fact that I've connected to the two of you lovely ladies to learn from you through the course that you're going to be starting in August. They can feel intimidated when people get together. I'm getting all tingly. It's when we mere humans get together to
Right.
work for the godly
Lots of ideas back
power.
and forth.
Would you ladies like to share, if you want to, about the course that you're offering? Because I'm really looking forward to working with you and learning. I just feel like there's the next level. Like I'm at base level. I feel like
Mhm.
your work is going to help educate me about the next level of how I can be working better. Better is just the word that comes to me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, different. It's just different ways of approaching things. The class specifically is um, obtaining a certification in religious demonology. So it's the foundation is Old Catholic or Anglican. It kind of moves in that space.
Yep.
But we're training people based on what the church teaches about spiritual warfare.
Yep.
Specifically what Jesus told us about spiritual warfare. So we pull a lot from scripture. It's a pretty intense class. We also do a lot of multicultural work. So we take into consideration, various different cultures, different religions, because it's also important, when you come across clients, not everyone is Christian, not
Yep.
everyone shares the same beliefs. Um, and so being able to culturally respect other people's beliefs and spaces. I think I'm a strong believer that we have to meet people where they are.
Yes.
I can say that I am Christian. I am, um, that's my path. That's the path that God has told me He wants me on, and it is sometimes very narrow. But I don't presume that that means everyone needs to be on my exact same path. I think that God speaks to us all in different ways. So I also wanted to incorporate some multicultural information in there about what does this culture believe about demonic entities, or do they even call them demons? Sometimes they
Yep.
don't. Um, so we look at different religions, we look at different cultures, we look at ancient history. We also look at the Bible and scripture and pull from that. And then we get into, toward the end, we also kind of talk about investigation. So, as a religious demonologist, what it looks like to put together a team, what type of people you're looking for. There really is an importance in, for example, finding people who are spiritually stable in wherever they are,
Yep.
because it can be dangerous work.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
so, taking that into consideration, making sure you put together a strong team of people that you really trust and feel that they have a strong spiritual connection to God. And then we also talk about just details of, what should be brought to a case, how should it be addressed, the importance of mental health
Yep.
um, evaluations, biopsychosocial assessments. We go into physiological, specifically neurological conditions as well that can sometimes mimic possession. There are a lot of seizure disorders, for example, depending on where that's happening in the brain, that can really look a lot like a manifestation of an entity, but it's not.
Yep.
And there are some defining factors there, but we go into those details as well. So it's pretty comprehensive. It lasts between 4 and 6 months in total. We usually meet one time a week for 2 hours. And then there are some strict guidelines in terms of, we ask that people be on the video the entire time. We do take breaks.
Yep.
I encourage people, get some tea, have a snack, you can eat your meal, whatever. It's very casual,
Yep.
but the content carries a lot of gravity. So I want people to be fully present with it. And then we have some assignments that we do, and then we have some case conceptualizations toward the end where we can kind of put our knowledge into practice with a specific case and also discuss and learn from each other. And then a final exam, and then graduation.
Sounds amazing. Amazing, amazing. Years ago, I found Reverend John Eckhart and all his books. There's one called Routing Demons. So when I first started, I was looking for prayers. I was looking for we'll call it the religious approach, but I didn't quite find it. I don't think I was ready for it. It's now. When Stephanie contacted me through Facebook, I went, you know what? I don't friend people very easily for a particular reason. I actually locked my profile and stuff. And I went, no, I'm going to friend this lady. I just knew there was something about the connection. And I was meant to meet both of you ladies to further where I'm
Yeah.
at. Because I feel like I'm at that plateau now where I can add. I can't wait.
That's
Yeah, there's a lot
beautiful.
we can learn from you too. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
yeah.
I've
That's
always been a
something I've learned
solo.
about teaching. You all learn together. In
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
those
Yeah.
perspectives, you learn from each other's experiences, and so everyone really, it's a mutual experience. It's great.
Absolutely.
But it can be, people judge when you
Yeah,
do
they
this
do.
line of work, and you're all nodding. So you both of you are nodding. So you know what it's like. You really do. You do get not attacked. I can't think of the right words right now, but people they doubt what you do as being a charlatan, because there's a lot of charlatans out there that rip people off, and
Right.
I come across them all the time, and I've got to repair what they've done and help the clients understand from my perspective how I work, and it works for them. They're like, wow, there are people out there that actually do this and they're genuine. So that's the word I'm looking for.
Right.
People don't always understand that this is genuine, ethical, moral work that we are doing.
Right.
And the more we come together and the more we talk about it, it shines that light, doesn't it? I just love it.
Mhm.
I love this
Absolutely.
lifestyle.
I think that
I
also comes
agree.
with the territory. There's
Mhm.
something, and I've had it, and I think Stephanie as well, and most people that I know who are called to spiritual warfare from a very young age, and I've heard 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that age, there becomes almost an obsession, or what might look like an obsession from the outside. I tend to look at it more like God is urging you.
Yes.
He's exposing you to things early on.
Right.
But I had this obsession as a child with learning about everything spiritual. So it could
Yep.
be angels, demons, ghosts. I wanted to learn all about different hauntings, vampires, werewolves, anything mysterious or
Yep.
strange, or,
Mhm.
I was fully in. I wanted to know everything, and I'd go on a deep dive. And I still have a passion for learning about those things. So I keep up with, people who are investigating. I want to hear other people's stories. I want to
Yes.
know, what are you experiencing? And so it's an ongoing learning process, but I know what you're talking about. There are people who will get into that space and become obsessed with the darkness,
Yes.
rather than, it's almost like when you're called to spiritual warfare, there's a focus on it, but
Yep.
it's for a desire to learn in order to serve, to assist people,
That's it.
out of those dark spaces, rather than, ooh, I want to be in that dark space because it would be cool and creepy. Because I think anyone who's actually done spiritual warfare knows it's not cool. It can be
Not at
terrifying,
all.
it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not always what it looks like on the outside.
Like it is, you've just
You're
got
on
to
guard
observe.
24/7.
You observe
Yeah.
Yeah.
everywhere you go. That is just life. And Stephanie and I were talking earlier about observing without fear. She says she has
Mhm.
no fear. I'm the same.
So am
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
I didn't start that way. I didn't start that way, but I do believe it was by the grace of God. That was a gift that He gave me
Yep.
after a
Absolutely.
very specific case, because that case really filled me with fear, and He was the one that removed it. So that was a spiritual process for me, but I knew then when that fear had been removed, like, okay, this is so that you can
Yep.
better serve in this way and you don't have your fear holding you back. Doesn't mean I don't
Right.
still get creeped out. I think there are probably some situations that I might take me aback a bit, but I don't carry fear,
No.
stepping into those spaces
There's a
anymore.
difference.
So, would you ladies like to share how our lovely listeners and viewers can contact you if they're interested in your services or possibly interested in your course? How can people contact you?
That was going to say they can just email me at paranormalangel1@gmail.com.
The St. Joan of Arc is St. Joan of Arc Independent Anglican Church. And then we also have a page that is called the Order of the Seraphim Guard, where the religious demonologists who've completed the training, they all kind of work together in that space. So they're part of that order. My email is Lesley, Lesley dot exorcist at Gmail.
Wonderful. And I will, of course, include all of the contact details will be in the description boxes on YouTube, as well as through all the podcasting apps that people can listen to us through. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. Thank you.